You're lying in your rack at 0200 trying to sleep before a dawn range when you realize the barracks is completely silent. No snoring, no coughs, no one turning over in their sleep. Just the low hum of the fluorescent lights in the hallway that never quite turn off. Then you hear it, slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the third floor. The third floor that's been sealed since 2011. This is Camp Asaka. Technically, it's just one corner of the Greater Asaka Garrison in Saitama Prefecture, Japan, home to the 1st Division of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force. But everyone who's ever been stationed here knows the real name, Mount Akakura Barracks. A cluster of aging concrete buildings pressed against the foot of a low forested mountain that the locals still refuse to name out loud. The mountain has been military land since the Imperial Army days. After the war, it became JGSDF property. On paper, it's a logistics and training site. Off paper, soldiers disappear, not desertions, not training accidents. Entire 12-man platoons have stepped off for nightland navigation and never been seen again. Officially, they're listed as lost in dense terrain. Unofficially, the old-timers say the mountain takes what it's owed. What you're about to hear are 5 separate first-person accounts from JGSDF personnel stationed at Mount Akakura Barracks between 2015 and 2024. Different years, different units, same barracks, same mountain. I've changed names and some minor details for privacy and OPSEC, but everything else is exactly as it was told to me. Sometimes in whispers, sometimes over too much shochu after lights out. Chapter 1. The third floor is off limits. I got to Camp Asaka in late October 2021 with Cherry Company 2nd Battalion, 32nd Infantry Regiment. They put us in Building 17, a 4-story concrete block built in 1938 that looked like it had been losing a fight with the weather for 80 years. The first floor stayed ankle-deep in water every time it rained, so the entire company lived on the second in an open bay, designed for half our number. Racks were triple stacked, wall lockers touching, and the air always smelled of wet tatami and old gun oil nobody could find the source of. During in-processing, the first sergeant gave the usual speech about the third floor being condemned after the 2011 earthquake cracked the main beams. A thick steel door at the top of the stairwell carried a fresh padlock and a bilingual sign, "Structural hazard, do not enter." The lock gleamed like it was replaced weekly. The sign was sun-faded and curling at the corners. My third night in country, I drew fire guard. At 0230, I was pacing the corridor with a red lens flashlight when I swept the beam up the stairwell and froze. Wet bare footprints were coming down the concrete steps, small, narrow, definitely not a man's boot tread, and the rest of the floor was bone dry. Water still dripped from the prints as I watched. I called the CQ. Runner, a skinny private named Sato who looked 12 in his glasses. He took one look, went pale, and whispered, "Tanaka-senpai, we do not go up there. Never." When I asked why, he just repeated the structural hazard line like he'd memorized it under threat of death. 2 weeks later, we lost Private First Class Nakamura. Nakamura was 19 soft-spoken kid from Okinawa who played Sanshin tunes on a cheap Bluetooth speaker when he thought no one was listening. He had the top rack above mine. One night, he shook me awake, eyes wide in the glow of his phone. "Sergeant," he breathed, "someone is standing at the foot of my rack." I sat up fast, scanned the bay. 40 guys snoring, no movement. I told him it was just sleep paralysis, go back to bed. He nodded, but he didn't sleep again that night. Next morning, his rack was stripped, mattress rolled, sheets folded into a perfect hospital corner, wall locker empty. His perfectly shined boots sat under the rack, laces tied together exactly the way he always did it. Double knot left, single knot right. Command posted him as unauthorized absence, but everybody knew Nakamura wasn't the type to run. That same night, I was on fire guard again. Around 0200, I heard the stairwell door creak. I looked up and the padlock was hanging open, chain dangling like someone had just unhooked it. I took one step onto the stairs and the temperature dropped hard enough to fog my breath in October. Then I heard singing, faint, in Okinawan dialect, the same melody Nakamura used to hum while cleaning his rifle. I backed down, wrapped the chain twice around the handles even though I didn't have the key, and stood there shaking until my relief showed up at 0400. When the sun came up, the padlock was locked again, shiny and new. No scratches on the hasp. We never found Nakamura. No body, no note, no trace. Just those boots and an empty rack. Sometimes late at night, when the wind slides down off the mountain and rattles the old windows, you can still hear someone humming that same Okinawan song from the third floor. The melody drifts down the stairwell, soft and sad, like a lullaby for men who never came home. Chapter 2. The Woman in the Type 89 Uniform. In summer 2017, my platoon from 1st Airborne got attached to the 1st Division at Osaka for a 3-week exchange. Every berth in the newer blocks was full, so they dumped all 36 of us into Building 17, 2nd floor again. Same story about the 3rd floor being off limits. Same fresh padlock, same tired sign. We were paratroopers. We laughed at the locals for being superstitious. First night, we did what airborne troops do when we're bored and full of testosterone. We turned it into a challenge. Platoon sergeant bet a month of no gas chamber that nobody had the stones to spend 5 minutes alone on the condemned floor. 3 guys stepped forward immediately. I went along to make sure nobody broke their neck and gave the battalion commander a heart. Attack. We used a multi-tool to pop the lock. The stairwell door opened with the long, slow scream of rusted hinges. The air that rolled out smelled of wet concrete and temple incense. Emergency lighting was still on up there, but it was the old orange sodium type that made everything look like dried blood. The corridor stretched farther than the building's footprint allowed. Perspective felt broken. Every door had a nameplate in pre-war kanji and romanji. Lieutenant this, Captain that. All Imperial Japanese Army ranks that hadn't existed since 1945. We were halfway down the hall, shining phone lights and cracking nervous jokes, when Private Abe stopped dead. "Mori-senpai," he whispered, "there's a woman." I looked. At the far end stood a lone figure in a perfectly preserved Type 89 uniform. Olive drab wool, red collar tabs, skirt down to mid-calf, the kind the Women's Army Auxiliary wore in 44 and 45. The cloth looked brand new, not a moth hole or fade mark. Her face stayed in shadow under the peaked cap. She raised one gloved hand and crooked a finger. "Come here." Abe took a step forward like someone else was working his legs. I grabbed the drag handle on his IOTV and hauled him back hard. The instant my hand closed on the strap, every light on the floor went black at once. Then every single door slammed open in perfect sequence. Bang, 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 bang down the hallway like dominoes. We ran. Abe lost a boot on the stairs. We didn't stop to pick it up. We hit the 2nd floor landing so hard the impact knocked the wind out of me. Behind us, the steel door slammed itself shut, and we heard the padlock click closed, though nobody touched it. Next morning, the company commander was waiting with transfer orders. No yelling, no Article 15s, just a quiet, "pack your shit. Truck leaves in 30 mics." As our deuce and a half rolled out the main gate, I looked back at Building 17. 3rd floor window, center pane. She was standing there in full daylight, hands clasped in front of her, watching us leave like a wife seeing her husband off to war. 2 weeks later, Abe went missing from Narashino. Orderlies found his perfectly folded uniform on the parade square at 0400 formation, boots polished and placed side by side, socks tucked inside. No body, no note, just the clothes he'd been wearing the night before. Airborne rumor net still says if the woman in the Type 89 uniform beckons you by name, you have 14 days. Abe lasted 13. I still have the boot he left on the stairs. Sometimes when I open my wall locker late at night, I catch the faint smell of temple incense. And once, just once, I found a single red thread caught in the laces. Bright, fresh wool that wasn't there before. Chapter 3. The radio that answered in dead men's voices. I was a signal sergeant with the 1st Division's signal company, stuck on permanent night watch in the SIF trailer parked behind Building 17 in the summer of 2023. My job was simple. Keep the battalion command net alive on a PRC 152, log anything weird, drink terrible instant coffee, and try not to fall asleep between 0200 and 0500. One August night, the temperature outside was still pushing 32 degrees, humid enough to make the air feel like wet wool. Inside the trailer, the AC was fighting a losing battle. I was half listening to the net, half scrolling my phone when the handset squelched hard at exactly 0253. A voice came through, calm, clipped, old-style military Japanese. "This is Fox Mike 29er, position grid 36U UT 124587. Heavy contact, request immediate extraction and artillery support. Ammunition critically low, over." That grid is deep inside the restricted mountain training area, a ravine nobody has used since the Imperial Army days. And Fox Mike 29er was the call sign for 2nd Battalion, 29th Infantry Regiment, the unit that got wiped out to the last man on the northern coast of New Guinea in 1944. I keyed the mic. Unknown station, this is Osaka Command. Identify authenticators. This net is secure. Static. Then a soft chuckle, followed by children laughing somewhere far away, like an old playground recording played at the wrong speed. I switched to the alternate frequency. The voice was already there, waiting. Hayashi. Why did you leave us in the cave? My family name. Nobody on this net ever used my family name. I yanked the battery out of the radio. The screen went black. The speaker kept talking. Temperature dropping rapidly. Morale high. Tell our mothers we tried to hold the ridge. The trailer started rocking, slow at first, then hard enough that the monitor slid across the desk and crashed to the floor. I stumbled outside, barefoot, on the hot asphalt, and looked up at Building 17. Every window on the 3rd floor was lit, bright white, and in each window stood a silhouette in old puttees and long coats, rifles at port arms, perfectly still. I grabbed my phone to call the CQ. No signal, landline dead. For exactly 7 minutes, the entire comms grid for the garrison went dark. Later, the logs confirmed it, but nobody could explain why. When the sun came up, the inside walls of the trailer were covered in thick frost. In August, the coffee in my mug had frozen solid. I still have the audio file I managed to pull from the recorder before the hard drive corrupted. If you slow it down 800%, underneath the voice you can hear drums, slow taiko, and dozens of boots marching in perfect step. The last thing the voice said before the battery died completely was my full name, rank, and service number, followed by a single sentence in perfect modern Japanese. Report to the 3rd floor for muster, Sergeant Hayashi. You're late. Chapter 4. The platoon that walked into the fog and never walked out. March 2024. I was a brand new 2nd lieutenant, freshly pinned, leading 3rd Platoon, Bravo Company, 1st Infantry Regiment. We drew a routine night land navigation exercise on the mountain behind Building 17. 12 men, full battle rattle, PVS-31s, GPS, encrypted comms, the whole modern package. 8 kilometers of ridges and draws we had walked 100 times in training. Piece of cake. We stepped off at 2100. The sky was clear when we left the motor pool, stars sharp enough to cut yourself on. By the time we hit the first checkpoint, fog rolled in so thick it felt like someone poured concrete mix over the forest. Visibility dropped to arm's length in under 5 minutes. NVGs turned the world into green mush. GPS units started spinning like drunk compasses. Even the old Lensatic I carried as backup froze pointing magnetic north no matter how I turned. At waypoint 3, we heard the drums. Deep taiko, slow and deliberate, coming from somewhere above us on the slope. The rhythm was Imperial-era marching cadence, the same one you hear in old newsreels of troops boarding transports for the mainland. My RTO tried to raise battalion net. Nothing but dead hiss. Spare batteries, different frequencies, same result. For the first time in my career, the net was completely dark. Then the lanterns appeared. Red paper yoshin floating between the trees at chest height. No strings, no wires, just hanging in the air like they were tied to nothing. Behind them walked ranks of soldiers in greatcoats and PTs. Arisaka rifles slung, bayonets fixed in catching a light that wasn't there. They moved in perfect step with the drums. My men, locked and loaded without orders, formed a hasty wedge. 12 rifles up, red dots dancing on ghosts. Nobody fired. Something in the air told us it wouldn't matter. The lead figure stopped 10 meters away. Imperial officer, captain's insignia, half his face rotted away, jawbone gleaming wet in the green glow of my NVGs. He raised one skeletal hand in a crisp salute and spoke in perfect modern Japanese. 3rd Platoon, Bravo Company, you are late for roll call. Fall in. The fog folded over us like a blanket. Next thing I remember is waking up alone at the base of the mountain, cheek against cold mud. Sun coming up. My watch read Oro 6:30. My ruck, rifle, helmet, everything was gone. In their place lay 11 more complete sets of kit arranged in a perfect circle around me, rucks upright, Rifles inserted muzzle down, helmets on buttstocks like grave markers. Every man's gear was there, down to dog tags still on the chains, but the bodies were simply not inside the uniforms. Search parties combed the mountain for 9 days. Dogs tracked our scent to the exact spot where the circle had been, then sat down and whined, refusing to go farther. No footprints leading away, no blood, no struggle. I was med-boarded out 6 months later. Still see the circle when I close my eyes. Still hear the drums when the wind shifts north. And every single night at 0253, my phone lights up with an incoming call from a number that doesn't exist. When I answer, all I hear is 12 voices calling roll in. Perfect unison, my name last, followed by the same calm correction. Chapter 5. The Last Fire Guard. August 2025. I was 19, fresh out of basic, still smelled like the Recruit Depot barber's talc. My first permanent party assignment was Camp Asaka, and my very first duty was fire guard in Building 17. 0200 to 0400 shift, alone. The second floor was quiet except for the usual snoring and the hum of the vending machine at the far end. I did my rounds every 15 minutes. Check the exits, check the stairwell door, check the fire extinguishers. Same route, red flashlight, trying not to think about the stories the day shift guys told just to watch the new kid squirm. At about 0030, I heard crying. Soft, high-pitched, definitely a child, coming from above me. The sound floated down the stairwell like it was riding the cold air that always leaked from the third floor. I stood there for a full minute telling myself it was a cat, or the wind, or anything that made sense. It didn't stop. It got clearer. A little boy calling, "Oka-san, Oka-san," between sobs. I knew the rules. I knew every story you just heard, but I was 19 and stupid and thought I could handle whatever it was. The master key hung on a hook behind the CQ desk labeled "Emergency Only" in faded marker. I took it. The padlock on the stairwell door opened before I even slid the key in. The shackle just popped loose on its own. The door drifted inward like someone was pulling it from the other side. The third floor hit me with a wall of freezer air. My phone died instantly. No low battery warning, just black. The emergency lights snapped on by themselves, bright surgical white instead of the usual dim orange. Every door in the corridor stood open. Inside each room were soldiers. Some sat on the edges of bare racks, polishing boots that weren't there. Some wrote letters at desks that had rotted away decades ago. One man cleaned a Type 100 submachine gun that existed only as rust stains on his hands. They moved in slow motion, repeating the same motions over and over, never looking up. Except one. He stood at the window of the last room on the left, facing out toward the mountain. Modern JGSDF camouflage. Same pattern I was wearing. When he turned, I recognized the face from the missing persons board downstairs. Private First Class Nakamura, the kid from Tanaka Senpai's story, the one who vanished in 2021. He looked exactly like his photograph, except his eyes were too dark, like someone had filled the pupils with ink. He spoke quietly, politely, the way recruits talk to senior enlisted. "Private Kenji," he said. "My name, my full name. Tell them we're still here. Tell them the mountain hasn't finished collecting." Then every light on the floor went out at once. Not flickered, went out like someone yanked the main breaker for the entire garrison. In the pitch black, I heard dozens of boots snap to attention, rifle butts hitting the concrete in perfect unison. I ran, dropped the flashlight, left the key in the lock, took the stairs 3 at a time, and slammed into the second floor door so hard I bruised my shoulder. When I looked back up, the stairwell was gone, just a blank concrete wall where the doorway had been. Next morning, the demolition crew found the third floor door welded shut from the inside. No torch marks, no spatter, just one continuous bead of cleaned steel where a door used to be. They started tearing the roof off Building 17 last week. Yesterday, the foreman called the job off, said the crew refuses to work after dark because they can hear a full platoon doing close order drill on a floor that no longer exists.